Hi, Michael Yard here for this week's Rich Habits, Poor Habits webcast. Money can't buy everything, but some things can buy money, which the rich know all too well. And that's what I want to discuss today, about what the rich do differently, what they do differently every day, and what's available to them. And so to join me, as always, my good friend, Tom Corley. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, Michael, it's good to see you again, my friend.
Now, you've done a long study of the wealthy people and the poor people, what made self-made millionaires become what they are. So today I'd like to unpack some of that, the information that we have in our great best-selling book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits. And in it, you've said that many wealthy people have set habits and behaviors that they perform every day to keep them focused, to keep them energized, to keep them motivated, so they continue to grow their fortune. I guess the reason I'd like to go through this with you today is that if people watching this want to become wealthy, they want to become like the other successful people, I guess the message is you've got to copy the way that they do things, see what they do, but also you've got to learn how to think what they think. So tell us, Tom, what did you find were the habits of the wealthy people?
Well, one of the things, there's so many of them, Michael, I tracked over 340 habits, but, one of the things that they really were good at was staying calm under pressure. And this is a habit. It's something you have to practice. Why is it important to stay calm and not let your emotions run away with you? Because when your emotions take over, they shut down the prefrontal cortex, which is your command and control center, your decision-making center. So when you're calm and cool under pressure, that means your neocortex, your command and control center, is directing traffic. When you allow your emotions to take over, that means your amygdala is in control, your prefrontal cortex isn't, and you're making decisions that are not based on thought or logic. They're strictly based on emotion, and that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's interesting, Tom, and it makes a lot of sense that we don't make sensible decisions, rational decisions, when our emotions come into play. I didn't realize, though, that you could make it a habit to stay calm.
Yeah, it's not easy because, look, especially if you're Irish or Italian, we seem to have a lot of issues controlling our emotions. But with practice, I've learned. I was one of the worst. In fact, I got kicked. I was playing in the finals of a big tennis tournament when I was 17 years old, and I was defaulted because of my anger. Now, I learned a mighty lesson after that, and I learned to control my emotions. Bjorn Borg did the same thing. He had a terrible temper. He learned to control it. So did Roger Federer. So there's no question you can control your emotions. It's just, do you want to? And you have to do a little bit of practice, and that means deliberate practice. And that means when you are faced with circumstances when you can lose your cool, you don't.
That's interesting, and McEnroe still hasn't learned, I guess.
Right, he still hasn't learned.
Okay, so we're working through some of the daily habits that the wealthy people have to make sure that they remain wealthy. What other ones would you like to share with us?
Well, so everybody talks about goals, right? So you're probably sick of hearing about goals, but one of the things that I found in my research was they go about the goal-setting process, the wealthy anyway, completely different than what we were taught in school or by our parents or by whoever. They actually look at a goal very differently. A goal is only a goal if it has two things. One, it has to be physical activity, some physical activity, and number two, it has to be 100% achievable. Now, you might be saying, well, wait a minute. A goal is some future objective, and that's where I say, no, that's called a dream. A goal is an action that you can complete. I need to, run 3 miles. Well, that's a goal because you can run, and you just have to do 3 miles. It's 100% achievable. That's a goal. A dream would be, I want to run, a marathon, because that's kind of hard. Well, you're going to have to practice and practice. So my point is that they create goals that they know they can achieve, and as a result, they are able to stick with those goals. They don't give up on them as most people do.
That makes a lot of sense. And once you achieve them, you set a new goal and a new goal, and you move further out and go further on, don't you?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, and that gives you confidence, Michael. And that's the one thing that self-made millionaires had a lot of: confidence.
Yes, I think that comes out in many ways. Having self-belief in yourself is very important as well. Okay, wealthy people seem to be able to get a lot more done in the day. They seem to be more efficient. They get so much done. I guess it's partly because they've got a habit of maintaining to-do lists.
Yeah, so this is another one like goals that people hate hearing about. Well, I'll give you a different spin on it. So instead of calling it a to-do list, just call it a habit goal list or a goal habit list. These are habits that you want to perform every day. Maybe it's a checklist of 5 habits that are goal related. If you're a runner, you want to jog. If you want to sell, you want to make some telemarketing phone calls or pitch some people. If you're a writer, you want to write 1,000 words a day. Well, these are goal habits. So you create a daily list of your goal habits, things that you want to pursue every day that are related to something that's important to you. You don't have to have a to-do list for every single minute of the day. That's silly. Nobody's going to stick to that. So my feeling is you have a to-do list that focuses on maybe 3 to 5 really important things related to your goals, your dreams, and you just try and go after those every single day.
And of course, you've got to prioritize them because you've got to know what's important and what's going to be your A activity and your B activity. But many of us tend to get caught up in secondary activities and don't eat the frog first, as Brian Tracy said in his book.
Yeah.
Get the important goals, sometimes the difficult ones, out of the way at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, that's right. And get the ones out of the way in the morning when you first wake up, because I'll tell you why. It's a neurological thing. In the first 45 minutes after waking up in the morning, you're coming out of your theta, you're in alpha, and your brain, your conscious part of your brain anyway, doesn't put up much of a fight. That's when you can get a lot of stuff done that you don't really like. I do all my technical reading in the first 45 minutes when I wake up, because it takes 45 minutes before my prefrontal cortex starts screaming at me, "This is boring, please stop. We have to move on to something that's more interesting."
Now, we talk about rich habits and poor habits, and it's very well documented in our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which you can get on Amazon or in all good bookstores. But we talked about some of the good habits people have. I think another one is the habit of educating themselves and not watching TV, not spending a lot of time wasted on YouTube, TV, Facebook videos, things like that. And they should be watching our videos, though.
Yes, that would be fine. And, TV isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're watching documentaries that help you learn or educate yourself. But most people, let's be honest, they watch TV to zone out. They basically become zombies for 2 or 3 hours, and maybe they're even binge watching the Game of Thrones or something that they like. And that is okay in moderation. So what is moderation? Moderation is no more than an hour a day of wasting your time watching TV. We all need a little bit of R&R, and an hour a day is all you need. You don't need more than that. If you're getting more than an hour a day of TV watching, you're abusing it, that you're not living up to rich habit number 6, which is everything in moderation.
Sure. So they're not watching TV, but they are listening to podcasts, reading, listening to TED Talks, doing other things that help educate themselves.
Yeah, so watching TV to me is a poverty habit, and it's okay to have a little bit of that poverty habit, but you also want to have some of the rich habits, that, like what you just mentioned, and something that is helping you. Like I'm listening right now as I it's too hot here in the United States to run outside, so I'm on the treadmill in the gym, and I'm listening to a book about Daniel Boone. I don't know anything about Daniel Boone. Well, I'm running and I'm listening to Daniel Boone, and it's one of these audio books. That's a great thing to do. Combine 2 habits, and instead of watching TV, maybe get on a Stairmaster or walk on a treadmill and listen to an audio book or a podcast. Our podcast, we have so many of them.
I remember Daniel Boone from when I was a child. He had that funny hat with the raccoon thing at the end. That's about all I know about Daniel Boone. Now, they educate themselves, they don't watch TV, but they hang around the right sort of people too, don't they? They understand the importance of being around good people, like-minded people, and also they learn how to network.
Yeah, so when people, I know myself, Michael, I hated the word networking because when I was working for Arthur Andersen, they made me go to these networking events, and I hated them because they were just a waste of time. So I'm not talking about those things where you're networking at these events with people you don't know. What I'm talking about is identifying success-minded people that you want to build a relationship with. And there's a lot of ways you can network with them. One of the ways is making happy birthday calls, making hello calls, making life event calls. It's maybe meeting them for breakfast and just having a chat. Maybe having a beer with them, after work, but one-on-one kind of stuff. That's the kind of networking that is really valuable. It's not going to some networking event where there's 100 people and then trying to give your business card out. That's a waste of time. Don't even bother.
Fully agree with that, Tom. And you're talking about face-to-face as opposed to having all these Facebook. And interestingly, one of the habits you've written about of these wealthy people, and it sort of makes sense, it's almost a no-brainer, is that they invest.
I always talk about the importance of saving, but it's really saving and investing. Well, my critics in the media, people in the media who don't like when I say that, they say you can't save your way to wealth. And I said, you're absolutely right. And if you read the rest of my article, you would understand that I meant savings and investing. So you can't invest what you don't have, right? So the important thing is to save first. You have to save something, 5% of your income, 10% of your income, but save something. Build that savings up to the point where you could deploy it and invest it. And that's what separates the self-made millionaires from everybody else. They save and they invest, and they do it consistently. And that's the important thing. They're not doing it one-off. It's not a one-off. They're doing it on a regular, consistent basis.
Now, one of the other habits that seems to come around with people who are successful is they have their to-do lists, but they also know how to work. They tend not to multitask. They tend to set aside certain times to get things done. Like I know you set aside scheduled blocks of time to do your writing. You set aside certain time to do your CPA work, to do your media work.
Yeah, so I picked this up I took a page out of the Wealthy in my study, and where I was, checking my email every day, every, I don't know, half hour, checking my voicemail. I check my email and my voicemail once in the morning and once in the afternoon. That's it. And it takes me about 15 minutes to do both. So I'm not wasting a whole day, because here's the thing. Multitasking, and there are studies on this, when you're working on something and then you stop what you're doing to look at an email that you received, it literally takes 5 minutes for your brain to get back into the mode where you were before you were distracted. So we're only able to focus our conscious mind on one thing at a time. When you multitask, you actually reduce your IQ by 18%. That's a bit, 18 points, not percent, 18 points.
Really?
So if you have 136 IQ, you just dropped it down to 118. And so, multitasking they also have studies that show that multitasking actually, they believe, causes some of the brain plaques that we have that are known as Alzheimer's. So there's brain damage going on. There's studies that show that multitasking reduces brain matter in the anterior cingulate cortex. So it's not only bad for your brain, it reduces your IQ. It makes you dumber. So you want to focus on one thing at a time, and this is why it's so important to block your time out.
Okay, I think there's something in there about why males can't multitask and women can, and who's smarter and who's not. But I'm not even going to go down there, Tom, because I'm going to get myself into trouble. But maybe to finish off these habits of the wealthy people, I think they also understand that they need a balance in their life. So work's important, and when you're there, you work hard, but you also need to know when to call it a day and spend time with the family and appreciate other things.
Yes. So you have to, look, it's much harder when you know this, and I know this, when you have kids, it's much harder to balance everything, but you have to earmark time to be with your family. So that's number one. And if your kids are out of the house, well, then you have to earmark time to spend with your significant other. And if you also have to balance your time so that you can spend time with yourself. This R&R, instead of watching TV, I love reading science fiction books. So I always have a half an hour to 40 minutes, and right before I go to bed, I sit, I have a glass of wine, and I read one of my science fiction books. That, to me, just relaxes me. It puts me in the right mood, and then I go to bed and I sleep like a baby. You gotta do those things for yourself.
Sure. So we started off by saying that money can't buy everything, but there are some things money can buy. In other words, having the right habits can get you there. Another story I like saying is that any problem that money can solve isn't really a problem at all. So we know that being wealthy is a lot more than money, though. You've got to have the right family, the health, the ability to contribute back to the community, time, ability to keep growing. So when people listen to these podcasts and watch our videos, they sometimes think these guys are all on about money. And no, it's not. You and I once a year spend time with a small group of high net worth individuals at Wealth Retreat, and we can see that, in fact, money doesn't come up a lot in their discussions at all. A lot has to do with contribution to their family, to the community. So keep an open mind when you hear Tom and me talk about these things. We do understand that there's a lot more to life than money. But if you have money, it actually creates a lot of opportunities for you and your family as well. Tom, it's been fun having a chat with you again. Once again, if you want to find out more about Tom, richhabits.net. He's got a daily blog and videos and podcasts. Michael Yardney podcast, my podcast, or Property Update, where Tom contributes all the time too. But most importantly, go online, go to Amazon, get Rich Habits, Poor Habits, where you can learn more about how you can become one of the wealthy people. Thanks, Tom. Look forward to our next chat real soon.
Same here, Michael.